Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about 60s Doctor Who in the collection range. And the 60s Doctor Who collection sets, which I don't think we're going to get for a while. I do think they're going to release the remaining 4 color seasons before they get any black and white seasons. Trying to determine a potential release order for the 60s seasons in the collection range is extremely difficult. Mostly, one second. Get a little air circulating in here. Mostly due to the fact that I firmly believe the release order is going to be determined by the animations, the animation releases. They have said that the animations are tied into the collection range releases now, that they are going to be taking animations into account when releasing the 60 sets in the collection range, which they should. It makes sense to be. So I firmly believe, and I believe they're also keeping the collection range in mind when they're picking which animations to do. Now, according to the new animation deal that they're supposedly hammering out, or trying to get hammered out, they wanted to focus on multiple animations at a time, and that they were thinking about the collection range when they were picking animations in addition to other stuff. I know audio quality is a big deal to them. But it's really hard to sit here and say it'll be this season over this season when I feel like at this point, what 60 season, the order we're going to get them in the collection range is very dependent on the animations. Because all of the remaining sets, well, all of the 60 seasons are affected by missing episodes to one degree or another. And like season 6 would seem an obvious choice. It's only missing one story. It's only missing the Space Pirates, which the Space Pirates doesn't seem like one of the trickier ones to animate. But, you know, all the seasons have something going against them. For season 6, it's the fact the Space Pirates isn't very popular. It's just not a story that has a good reputation, despite being a Bob Holmes story. Now, in my opinion, one of the reasons it has that reputation is that so much of it's missing, and there are no telesnaps. And that recon, that recon is a chore to get through. It just gets progressively harder and harder. It's a cumulative effect with that one, where it just gets more and more tedious and bothersome as you're going into it. And the fact the one surviving episode isn't the most interesting episode of Doctor Who to ever air, to be honest. It's mostly our TARDIS crew is trapped in that room. So it's not the episode I would have picked if only one episode of Space Pirates could have survived. Now, the novelization is a nice read. I enjoyed the novelization, but not everybody's read the novelization. I enjoy it myself. And it is a very visual story. It is. If you read it, you really need the visuals with that story. Much like, say, The Celestial Toymaker, which I feel like The Celestial Toymaker is a much better watch with its animation. The same thing with Enemy of the World being reassessed when it was found. It's a very visual story. Space Pirates is a very visual story, and the lack of telesnaps especially really hurts it. John Cura was in very bad health when Space Pirates was airing. He had stopped doing telesnaps by then, and I believe he passed not long after, sadly. So, I feel like Space Pirates could really benefit from an animation, though. Especially if you took the Macroterra approach and you took some creative liberties. Because I feel like Macroterra really benefits from the creative liberties taken with it. It went from this kind of B story that never got talked about, possibly because it was completely missing. But even the original production looked very B-tier, C-tier filler story. And I feel like the creative decisions made it much more interesting. I actually see people in YouTube videos talk a lot better about Macroterra. And I think part of that is just down to how good the animation is. It's one of the best animations we've gotten. And well, they really need to get Sun and Moon Studios back. I know that they probably can't afford them. And I'm sure that's what it is. But I really wish they could get Sun and Moon Studios back, because I feel like Macroterra is the bar. They have not exceeded that bar yet. That's the gold standard for me at this point for these modern style animations. And I feel like if you took those kind of creative liberties with the Space Pirates, you could get a really good story. But I'm worried they wouldn't put that kind of budget behind Space Pirates, because if you're going to put that kind of budget into a story, you want that story to sell. And I think, again, with the Space Pirates reputation, there is a fear that people won't buy it. That it's the Space Pirates. Which it's like I understand that fear, but I think it's an irrational fear. One, I think there's a lot of us, we buy all the animations because we want to have this on our shelf. You know, we want to fill in that slot. There are some people that want to have every story on the DVD on their shelf, so they'll buy the DVD version of it just to have the case on the shelf. Then they'll buy the Blu-ray version of it because they want to watch it on Blu-ray. Or they'll buy the Steelbook because they like Steelbooks. This guy. And then we also want to support the range. We want to support the animation range because we know if the animations do well, they'll make more animations. So we want to support the range. So I feel like it would sell well. It's also a Robert Holmes story. Big Robert Holmes fan here. Would definitely be supporting Robert Holmes with a release. I think Space Pirates would sell on par with most of the animations. I think it would do whatever most of the animations do. I mean, I don't know if there's a vast difference between what the animations do these days, like, say, the past decade. I don't know if there's a huge difference in numbers between them. I've never seen the numbers. But I feel like Space Pirates would sell about like most of the others. I think it would do really well because there are plenty of people who would love to be able to see this story with good visuals for the first time, especially if you make a good trailer for it. If you put some effort into animating this and take some good creative liberties to kind of spice up the visuals, and you release a badass trailer for it, I think there are some people who will go, I mean, I'm on board for it. They announced the Space Pirates. Prowl's pre-order is click, done. But that's pretty much any animation for me. I'm that guy. There's a lot of us, a lot of you who watch my channel. You're that guy or that girl. You're gonna sit there and go, yeah. So I feel like Space Pirates would do well, but I feel like the main reason they might be hesitant is because of its reputation. And they don't think it would do well. They're worried about sales. I think that's the only thing holding Season 6 back. Like, there was a time I figured Season 6 would definitely be the next 60's season. And it still makes sense for it to be, but there's also that possibility they could do Season 5 first. Season 5, 1, is a more popular season. It is. Season 5 is Troughton's, I think, typically considered Troughton's best season. I personally prefer Season 6, but that could simply be because more of it's complete. Although I do find Season 5 to be a bit cookie cutter with the plot. I mean, it's a lot of base under siege stuff, let's be honest. Whereas Season 6, there's a lot more variety in the stories, which I like. And then Season 5, we have the same issue of we're really just missing one story. And this is the one that gets me. Wheel in Space is the one story that hasn't been animated yet that I am just sitting here going, why? Why have we not gotten this one yet? You figure Wheel in Space would have been officially animated by now because it seems like a hole-in-one, a slam dunk, a grand slam, a guaranteed moneymaker. Now, to be fair, I'm perfectly happy with Tardis Time Girls animation. Steve and Iz Skinner's fan-made animation that is on YouTube. It is phenomenally good. And how good they managed to make that animation match up with the surviving episodes is fantastic. I wish I had a physical copy of that. Someone wants to burn that on a DVD, put it in, make up a little slipcase in the Region 1 or Region 2 DVD set, and send it over to me. The P.O. box is down in the description of the video. Feel free. It would go right here on the shelf, right alongside the official ones, because I love that animation. Anytime I talk about Wheel in Space, I rave about that animation, because anytime I see something like that, and it's a fan work, especially, I want to make sure I call that out in case someone hasn't seen it. And the Skinners do great work. I like the work they did on the Celestial Toymaker release. They did some work on the Telestat Recon. It looks really good. I believe they're working on a Web of Fear Episode 3 animation as well. But I always like to call attention to stuff like that because it's good work. And I would be fine with that. If they release that as the Season 5 animation on a collection box set, I'm fine with that. That works for me. But I feel like one of the reasons the BBC didn't want to use it, because the Skinners did approach them to use it if they had wanted it, was that you would assume it's because they're working on their own animation. And they've even released that little 10-minute abridged animation of episode 1 on the Macroterra release, which could be the problem. That 10-minute animated version of episode 1 of Wheel in Space looks really good. Especially that little CGI robot looks phenomenally good. I really liked that abridged version of episode 1. It's very well animated. And I think the BBC worry that if they do an official animation, it's not going to look that good. And they're probably right, because the animations don't have quite that much polish put into them now. They're still fine. I enjoyed the Savages animation. I enjoyed the Underwater Menaces animation. But they're still not as polished as that short is. And I worry the BBC are worried that there would be comparisons. People would look at the abridged version, look at the final animation and go, I wish we'd gotten that. I feel like maybe there's a concern for that. Because other than that, Wheel in Space feels like a slam dunk. You have a Cyberman story. One of the big three. Let's be honest. Doctor Who villains, there's the big three. The Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master. It's one of the big three. It's a 60s Cyberman story. I know a lot of people would argue it's the weakest of the 60s Cybermen stories. I'd probably agree. But it's a 60s Cybermen stories, which is better than most. I mean, Revenge of the Cybermen and Earthshock and Attack of the Cybermen have it beat, to be fair. But it's got most of modern Who beat. I mean, the Wheel in Space, the Cybermen are treated as a threat. They're not just made a generic army for somebody else. Modern Who messes up the Cybermen so often. It very rarely gets them right. It occasionally gets them right, but it seldom gets them right. Whereas Wheel in Space treats them as a credible threat. 60s Cybermen is the best Cybermen. It just is. So you have a Cyberman story where the Cybermen are written well. You also have a companion introduction story with Zoe. This is Zoe's first story, a story that introduces a new companion. And it's a season finale. And it's the only season you need to complete a season for a box set. Like, it just seems like it checks all the boxes it needs to on get this one ready to go. Why is it not? I do not understand the logic behind this one not being made, other than they're scared the animation won't be as good as the abridged version we got on the Macroterra release. Or that everybody loved the Wheel in Space animation by the Skinners so much that they're worried about comparisons being made. Which, if that's the case, you could probably get the Skinners to let you use their animations on the release as well. I mean, I don't know what kind of money they would ask for. I don't know if there's even money involved. I have no idea what happened in those conversations. But, you know, it never hurts to give your audience more choices. Like on a collection box set, I wouldn't mind having a 2D animation of Wheel in Space, but I'd love to have the Skinners animation included as well. That way, if I want to watch that way, I can. It never hurts to give your audience more choices. Other than that, Season 5 seems ready to go. All the other stories have been completed. They either have existing episodes or they've been animated. And Season 5 is a popular season. Again, Troughton's typically most popular season from what I see, even if it's my least favorite by him. But all of his seasons are good. Season 5 is still good. Those seem like the most likely to me for the reasons I've discussed. Season 1 seems harder because while it's only missing one story, it's Marco Polo. Marco Polo, especially being a historical and being a 7-episode historical, seems much harder to do than Wheel in Space and Space Pirates because historicals are harder. You have typically a larger cast of characters. You have location changes. You have costume changes. And Marco Polo has all of these things. You have so many different characters. You even if it's smaller characters in smaller roles sometimes, you have several costume changes. You really want to capture the extravagant look of the costumes. One thing about Marco Polo from the behind the scenes production shots is that the costumes look very grand. It looks like Marco Polo really had a budget put into it. It looked very grand, which, to be fair, Doctor Who is usually really good about, in classic and in modern Who. When they go to the past, when they're doing some kind of historical, they typically look good. The BBC is good at doing that kind of stuff. And Marco Polo looks like it looked good from the pictures. The costumes looked extravagant. So the animation needs to capture the fact those costumes look glorious and not just be cheap looking. It really needs to capture the glory of how those costumes look. And also the changes of location, because there's a lot of that in that. I feel like Marco would have to be done in 3D. I don't think you could do that in 2D currently. But if you're going to do it in 3D, it's got to look good. It's got to be a huge step up from Celestial Toymaker, which Celestial Toymaker's animation style works really well for the Celestial Toymaker. For that fantasy, surreal nature of the story, that animation style fits perfectly, practically. It actually works really well. I didn't realize how much I was going to like the animation style until I watched the Celestial Toymaker when it came in, which is on the shelf right over here. But it actually works for that story really well and really elevates the Celestial Toymaker as a story in my eyes, because it does a lot of things the original production just couldn't do. But that style isn't going to work for a serious historical like Marco Polo. You've got to improve that technology. And Shapeshifter Studios has proved that they can do that. There's a huge jump in quality from Web of Fear Episode 3 to the Celestial Toymaker. There's a huge jump in quality there. They really got a lot better. If they can make another huge jump in quality like that to a 3D animation, we have hopes. There are definitely hopes. Marco, I feel like would, especially at 7 episodes with all of that, would need that leap. It's got to have a more realistic look to it. Now, personally, what I would like for them to recreate Marco Polo just with a modern cast, like, you know, David Bradley as the first Doctor, recast the other companions, and just reshoot the thing. But there's no way they're going to have the budget for that. Let's just be honest. That's not for 7 parts. No, they're not going to have the budget for that. That's just a dream of mine. But I would like to see it, even if David Bradley's first Doctor is very different than William Hartnell's first Doctor, let's be honest. But I still like Bradley's first Doctor. Yeah, I feel like you'd have to do 3D animation, and I feel like it definitely needs an improvement. I don't think we're there yet. So I feel like Season 1 might be a bit. We've already got Season 2, and I don't think we're going to get a Crusade animation anytime soon, because they're probably focusing on stories to include in collection sets. Season 4 really just needs 2 stories, and at this point, I wish they would focus on Season 4 more and just get it done. First off, the Smugglers, would the Smugglers be that hard? Can you do the Smugglers in 2D? It is a historical. Are there too many characters? I love the Smugglers. I love the Smugglers. I love the recon of the Smugglers. I've watched it a couple times now, I think, haven't I? And then I also love the novelization of the Smugglers. I just like the Smugglers. It's a great story. And then, I don't know how difficult it would be. It's 4 parts. It's got a few characters, but I don't think too many. Not too many different locations. I'm kind of surprised they haven't moved on with the Smugglers. I think you could do it in 2D. And then, of course, the Highlanders probably would have to be 3D. It runs into the same problems as Marco Polo, where just the 3D animation would have to be improved. It's got to reach that level of not looking silly for a historical. It's got to pass muster, so to speak. Because I love the Highlanders. I'd love to see it animated. It's a great story. I enjoy the recon. I enjoy the novelization. It's got some humor in it, which I like. It's got serious moments in it, which I like. And it's got character growth for characters in it. I really like that. But again, maybe that's the reason why they're holding off on it, is they don't feel like the technology is there yet. They seem to be working more on Season 3. We've gotten a lot of Season 3. Of course, recent rumors floating around that the next animation might be the Mythmakers. Or rather yet, that the Mythmakers is being worked on, possibly. We did have that one potential leak from the actress who plays Cassandra, who said she's done something involved with Mythmakers, whether that's a making of, an audio track, commentary, something. So potential anime, and we know again that their plan was for future animations to try to work on multiple ones at once. So even if it's not the next one, perhaps it's one that is being worked on. You know, they may be working on 2 or 3 at a time. But they really have been focused on season 3 lately, with what, only about 4 season 3 stories to go at this point. Mythmakers, Mission to the Unknown, Dalek's Master Plan, and the Massacre. I guess I could see the Mythmakers being animated. It's not at the top of my list of stories I wanted, but I wouldn't mind having it. It needs visual representation. I don't know how well an animation team could do the Battle of Troy, though. That seems like a large-scale setting to do. But it would be nice to see them tackling another historical, since I don't think they've animated a historical since the Reign of Terror. Because it's not easy to do historicals with big cast, costume changes, location work. As we've discussed, they tend to shy away from historicals because of that. And the fact historicals just aren't as popular as a lot of the other stories, historically, ironically. So season 3, they seem to be trying to fill the gaps in to get it as ready as possible. Now, could they potentially release box sets without stories being animated? Possibly. Maybe their philosophy will be everything except one, like with season 2 with the Crusade. I hope not, because I think the standalone releases would sell. I do think the standalone releases would sell, even for Space Pirates. And then, of course, you wait the 12 to 18 months, I think about 18 months for it to have its original, individual sale. Then you put out the box set. Whew. At least that's my thoughts on the matter. I'm getting a little winded. So, basically, to boil it down, it's really hard to predict how they would release the 60s seasons, because I feel like the 60s seasons are going to be very dependent on animation releases. But we know they are taking the collection range. They are keeping it in mind when they're picking which animations to do now. That does factor into that, which is nice to know. So it's really hard to say season 6 next, then season 5, then season, when it's totally reliant on what they do with the animations, in my opinion. If Space Pirates gets animated first, we'll get season 6 first. If Wheel in Space gets animated first, we'll get season 5 first. Maybe they'll go ahead and try to hammer more out with season 4 or 3. I don't think so, though. I figured the first Troughton season they put out, they would want it to be at least a halfway complete Troughton season with surviving episodes. I don't think they put out season 4 first, which only has 10 surviving episodes, despite most of it being animated at this point. I figured you'd want your first Troughton set to either be 5 or 6, because 6 is mostly complete, and 5 is a little over half complete with actual surviving episodes. And I figured you'd want a Troughton out before a Hartnell, especially with Marco Polo so hard to do. So I would assume it would be 5 or 6. But who knows? Who knows? I do think we will get the remaining color seasons first. I think the next 4 sets will be 13, 21, 11, and 16. Not necessarily in that order, but I do think we'll get those before we get another 60s set, to give them more time to work on the 60s sets, to do restoration work on the episodes, because those 60s episodes were long. Those seasons, were long. We're talking the 60s seasons averaged around 40 episodes a season, some a little less, some a little more, but those were big seasons. To give them time to restore those to look as good as they can, and to complete the stories with animations, I think they'll go ahead and get the color sets out, which I'm fine with. I am fine with. So I want to know what you think of this video, which has ran longer than anticipated. I need something to drink. Comment down below and let's talk about it. All the other fun stuff as well. Links to the Patreon down in the description. The P.O. box is down there if there's anything you want to send me to look at and review. Links to the Amazon wish list. Links to the Amazon UK wish list. All that fun stuff. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons. Finn Perkins, Colin Coney, Sam Venning, and Unknown289. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly, thank you for watching.